Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Bubblehead Fantasy Football Podcast. Doing a little bit something different this week compared to our normal we've been doing for the past few weeks. So today we're going to be discussing the 2023 and 2024 NFL Draft risers and fallers, and kind of throwing in a couple more topics in there. Eric, good to see you today. Looking forward to discussing this topic today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you, Robert. I'm really excited. I mean, this is what Dynasty Fantasy Football is all about, is getting ahead of your league mates, figuring out how good the upcoming players are, and kind of gaining a little value in that.
Yeah. So let's just go ahead and jump on in, right? We got big thing to discuss here is the 2023 class, 2024 class, right? What picks, like, where do you rank the 2023 class versus the 24 class?
So here's where I think I've been trying to exploit this as much as I can in Dynasty, is that everybody's on to the 23 class. People have been talking about it. I mean, you and I, the people in the Devi community, have been talking about it since they were freshmen, right? But at least for last year, your typical Dynasty player has been on it. And those picks are so highly valued now that I don't even really want to try and get them anymore. So I'm trying to get 24 picks because I think the 24 class is comparable with 23. I think they have different strengths, but I think in time we're going to see that the 24 class stands right up with the 23 class.
Yeah, I think with the quarterback talent, right, you're looking at a very comparable class at the top. We haven't had that many people from 2024 really separate in terms of, the depth of the class, but it's early still, right? You could still have some of those guys still rise in the draft next year or even this year at the end. But I think the running backs and the wide receivers also have a lot of talent. So let's just go ahead and, so let's say, right, if you could get a 2023 class and a 2024 class first round pick, same value, are you taking the 2023 class still?
Yeah, if it's going to cost me the same to acquire it, I still want the 23. And honestly, that's one, it's closer, right? It's going to be able to help my team sooner if it's, the same value pick, right? If it's a projected early pick or a projected late pick. But also, the really important thing is your league mates are going to value that pick more. So, right, if I can acquire that 23 pick for the same price, whether it's right now, whether it's, in February, whether it's in May or in August, I can trade that 23 pick for a 24, the same 24 pick plus.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing here too, though, is that the 2024 class actually, in terms of current value, is probably actually about the 2023 class is about 2 times as much as the 2024 class in terms of current value, right? But really, I think it's a little bit closer. It's much closer than that, right? And like you said, I think the only value really that you get out of 2023 is that for a fact that you're going to be able to improve your team next year. I think that's the biggest benefit with 2023 right now. But I think 2024 is just as comparable. So let's go ahead and jump into the 2023 risers and fallers here, or the rise and fallers we have. We'll start with some of my guys here. So I want to talk about I think he's going to win the Heisman, the Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker is a 24-year-old, turned 25 by the draft, I believe. And I don't necessarily think he has that high of a NFL ceiling, at least in terms of draft capital. I think he's going to probably be a second-round pick, maybe late first. But he has come on the scene the past about a year and a half. And he is a very talented quarterback. He's producing one of the best offenses in college football right now, if not the best. And let's talk about the number one receiver there, right? Cedric Tillman, until his injury, was one of the top receivers in Tennessee, was really leading that team for the receiver room. And I think he's caught a lot of eyes. He was probably a late pick this coming into this year. And I think he could play himself into the third round. And then he also has the potential to go to the Senior Bowl or something like that, and really improve his draft stock even further. What do you think about those two, the Tennessee boys?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a sustained success in fantasy football to draft Tennessee products for quite a while now, but things are changing. They just beat Alabama in one of the most exciting football games in the last 5 years, probably. I mean, that was wow, that was fun. And yeah, I wonder about the age with Hooker. I don't think NFL teams are going to knock him that hard. Do you think that's like a big, if you're for NFL GM, are they going to like really knock him down for that? Or is it more the fantasy community that will do that?
No, I think it's an NFL knock. Look at Kenny Pickett. Look at Brandon Whedon before that, right? Both of those guys, like that was a big knock for them coming into the league. Like everybody was saying, like, okay, well, what if this is their ceiling? Like, because if this is their ceiling, like I don't really want it, right? Because then you're just looking at kind of an average game manager kind of quarterback long term. Now, that's not to say that they can't improve, but that's the question, right? Is you get this a bigger question of like how much more do they have left to jump up at that age? Whereas if I'm drafting a 20, 21-year-old quarterback like Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams in 2024, there's a big age difference there that they could still improve quite a bit. So
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, both of those players you referenced, they were first round NFL draft picks. So, they didn't get knocked down too far. But the ceiling idea, right, that this player is more further into their development, they're closer to their ceiling. That's interesting. I mean, Hooker has looked great in the Southeastern Conference. He was a high recruit out of high school. He had to transfer. He didn't have a good situation. I don't know. After that Alabama game, I'm starting to believe now. Right, when it comes to QBs, the biggest thing for me in fantasy football is draft capital. Right, if he goes and gets a first round, drafting the first round in April, I am very interested. And obviously, let's see what he does. He's still got to go to Georgia, right? He's got to go to Athens, and then if they can beat them, he's probably going to have another, a rematch with Bama. And, like how far can he go with this? Like, if he can bring Tennessee to the college football playoffs and, to a college football national title game, I think a lot of people are going to forget about age and, anything else than what he's done this year. So,
yeah. I mean, I do want to say too, because I've been dying to say this about Alabama since that game. Hendon Hooker played really great, but I just want to say how Alabama's defense was supposed to be the strength of this team coming into this year, and they look atrocious. They look like they're the worst defense that Alabama's had. And
so you're the resident SEC expert between you and I. I got a question for you. Is Alabama's time at the top over, or at least near over?
I mean, they're always going to be at the near top.
But there's a big difference between the top 2 or 3 teams in the country and the 10th best team, and that's kind of what I'm getting at.
They're going to stay at the top.
Would they still be a tier 1 team?
Yeah, they're still going to stay there. They're going to stay right there with Georgia.
What about post Bryce Young? That's really what I'm getting at.
I mean, what about the same was said right after post Tua? The same was said right after post Mac Jones.
I'm curious. I'm getting worried. They're not bringing in the same level of players. That we'll see, but I wouldn't be shocked if they're a 9-3 football team come 2024, 2025.
I mean, yeah, that's reasonable. Just in 2023, 24, sure. But I think they're going to rebound, and I don't see any reason they're not going to be a tier 1 team. Like maybe not next year, but in the near future, they're still going to be a top tier 1 team.
So to mention Cedric Tillman, right? Hendon Hooker has done this mostly without Tillman, who you said is his best receiver, at least the last few games. So that's a kind of feather in the cap of Hendon Hooker, in my opinion. But Tillman's interesting. We just saw Velus Jones Jr., the other very old Tennessee player that got drafted in the 3rd round by Chicago last year. A lot of people had different opinions. He was a very polarizing player in fantasy. Hasn't had a lot of opportunity this year due to some injuries so far, but is starting to get healthy and get used. Tillman, Tillman's interesting, and in such a deep class, I think he's going to be a player you can get in the late second round, maybe even early third round. So there's that could be a good value.
Yeah. Yep. So I want to jump in on Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is absolutely my favorite player in these two classes. I actually have Caleb Williams as number one quarterback overall for 2023 and 2024. And the reason I have that is because of the running ability. Do you think I'm crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. Not at all. I actually, spoiler, I have Drake May as my number one overall quarterback out of these two classes. I'm not that excited. I'm sorry. Relative to everyone, I'm not that excited about Stroud and Young. I'm worried about them. One, Young is very small, and he's not Kyler Murray, quick, agile, right? What he's been doing with a bad offensive line and terrible weapons has been honorable, especially with this recent shoulder injury. That game, that performance he put on at Knoxville was fantastic. He did not lose them the game. He had a fantastic football game. But right, you're going to have to take them in the top 3 or 4 picks in the 2023 loaded NFL or fantasy draft.
Top 2 you're going to say top 3 or 4. I'm saying top 1 or 2. Like they're going to go 1 and 2 in a super flex draft.
Not if I got 101. I got Bijan all day long at 101.
No, I think you got to take the 2 top quarterbacks. But I mean, that's just a difference of.
I get it. But like, I don't know. Show me Ohio State quarterbacks that's been good in the NFL, and then I'll believe it. And with this Stroud, like he's looked amazing. I mean, the efficiency numbers he's doing without Jackson Smith and Jigba. But if I'm on the clock 101, I'm just going to take Bijan and know that I'm going to have a top 5 dynasty running back from day one. I have no concern there. So, but yeah, and we don't need to split hairs too much on that. They're great prospects, but I'm with you. I think the 24 QBs are slightly better. Yeah.
I think the big thing with Caleb Williams is that he has improved drastically as a passer, in my opinion. I think he's significantly better going through his reads, and then he's significantly also better going with his accuracy. And that was something that I was very critical on Caleb Williams of his freshman season. I thought that he still had a ways to go in terms of improving that area of his game, because what it seemed like he would do in his freshman year is if his first read wasn't there, he was gone, which he's a talented enough player where that works. But he's definitely he hasn't necessarily eliminated that part of his game, but he's not looking to run all the time now. He looks to get outside the pocket and then make a play with his arm, which is something that I think is very intriguing.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Quentin Johnston next, right? So TCU wide receiver. I think he could be very well in that tier 1 of wide receiver prospects now after a very good start to the season.
Well, after a very good last couple of games, because the start of the season was really bad, and everyone was like, "What the hell are we doing?" He's clearly the best player they have, and we're really throwing the ball to him the first few games, but he's exploded the last 2 games. I mean, I'll scout the helmet again. Aren't you worried about another TCU super athlete coming into the NFL?
No, it's a different player type, different body type.
I mean, athletically, I hope he does all events of the combine, because he could have an all-time combine performance. This guy is special.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have the issues separating. I think he has elite agility numbers. I think he has elite, or maybe not elite end speed, but very good end speed, top end speed. And then I think he's a strong player. I don't have any worries about him, honestly. I think he's going to be a very good player, and I think he's going to get first round draft capital.
Yeah, I mean, the way wide receivers are just getting gobbled up in the first round of the NFL draft, I don't see it happening, or I don't see him falling out of the first round unless there's some type of injury. And we always hope for health with any player. Yeah, to me it just comes with the athleticism. I mean, he's starting to really produce on the field, which is great. But some of the like rumblings about the numbers he's going to put up is like mind-boggling if it's really true.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the fallers here real quick. So Jermaine Burton, I think, is actually probably the one who has hurts his draft stock the most. I thought that he had a lot more ability to be something more than a deep threat, but he has shown nothing other than being a deep threat for Alabama. I think he's been the most disappointing fantasy prospect that in recent memory. I think he's fallen out of the third. I think he's maybe going to go in the third round. Like I think he could have, if he doesn't perform really well in the off season, I think he could fall out of the third round even. And he has to start improving because I think right now he looks literally just like he's a deep threat. That's all he looks like. I don't think he provides anything else for my team at this point. If I have Jermaine Burton, I'm trying to sell him.
I mean, how confident are you that Jermaine Burton is going to enter the 2023 draft at this point? It's been a really bad year.
I mean, I don't think he's going. I wouldn't. If I was him, I wouldn't. But at the same time, does that help you? I don't think it helps you because then you don't play with Bryce Young.
Yeah, when you play so bad, it's your options aren't really loaded with good options. He might be best to just try and get a nice NIL deal for 2023, put some money in his pocket, because I'm not convinced this guy's going to be a professional football player for very long.
Yeah, he was one of my biggest. I thought he was going to blow up at Alabama this year. I thought for sure he was going to have a big year. I thought with Bryce Young throwing him the football, I thought he was going to, just smash first round draft capital. And he's had an awful year. I'll just say absolute awful year.
Yeah. The other thing with Burton is post, Knoxville, that Knoxville Classic game, he got arrested. He assaulted some fan that came on the field. I haven't seen video, but apparently he slapped, a woman like right in the face. Yeah. He's been arrested, and there hasn't been really any talk from Bama. Is there going to be a suspension, whatnot? But I mean,
yeah, I didn't hear that he got arrested. I didn't hear that he got arrested. All I heard was that Alabama was investigating it.
Yeah. But yeah. Not good either.
Yeah. And then the last faller that I have is Parker Washington. And I don't think, and so this is kind of a pulling hairs here in terms of a faller. I just think he really needed to show that he filled the Jahan Dotson role. And I just don't think he has. I think Penn State has always been a little bit overrated this season to me. I think that they overutilized a really bad Auburn team that shot them up the polls. But I think Parker Washington's a big reason they're struggling too. Like, they don't have a passing game and they don't really have a good receiver. And so that's kind of hurt Parker Washington's stock to me.
Yeah, I mean, those that, are big fans of Parker Washington are going to point to Sean Clifford as the reason he's not succeeding. Except who was throwing the ball to Jahan Dotson last year when he was, becoming a first-round NFL draft pick? It was Sean Clifford, right? I don't think in his sixth season, all of a sudden something, he didn't get worse. Like, he's just a super average college quarterback. And you're right. Everyone thought he was going to, just be the next line of Penn State wide receiver. They've been really good, over the last 5-10 years of putting out great receivers and
running backs too.
Players in general, defensive, offensive, really they've done a great job as an NFL, production factory. But I don't think Parker's going to be amongst that.
Yeah. So what do you think about these guys? Do you think I'm wrong on any of these, or do you think I'm a little off base? Or
I think the only one I would kind of, not really argue, but like if I have to pick one, it'd be Caleb Williams, just because like he's risen from the projected first overall pick in the 2024 draft to the projected first overall pick. Right.
Yeah,
he hasn't really changed in value. I think we're just kind of confirming what we saw last year.
I'm saying that I think he's better than the 2023 class. I'd rather have, if you told me, hey, I'll take Caleb Williams. If you trade me Caleb Williams for Bryce Young, I'll probably take Caleb Williams. Yeah, whereas before the season, I don't think that would have been the case.
I hear you. Yeah, but I agree. He has risen in value. It's just, the other ones kind of like scream. It's obvious, like, yes, they obviously rose or fell.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go into your list here. You want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll go right to my number one quarterback in college, Drake May. I mean, I I like this kid coming out of high school. Great product. And then he sat behind Sam Howell last year as a true freshman. And unfortunately, I didn't really get any shares of him this offseason because those that were like it all in on Drake May, they were acting like he was gonna maybe not do what he's doing right now. Because I mean, he's been truly special: 24 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Um, but like I was like, I got to see it first. Well, instantly, he looks amazing. He can run, he can throw, he's big, he's got timing with his passes. I mean, he's got 7 starts in his college career, and he already looks like someone that's at 20, 25. Is a special player.
Yeah, I just don't agree with the number one quarterback. Obviously, just like we talked about with Caleb Williams, like I still have Caleb Williams at number one, but Drake May. Honestly, this is the strength of 2024's draft class: is Drake May, Quinn Ewers, and Caleb Williams. Those three right there put this class over the top in terms of like overall talent, right? Um, I think Quinn Ewers, Drake May, and Caleb Williams, all three are going to be. I think they could go 1, 2, 3 next year. Um, and so with Drake May, right, he's everything you want in a quarterback. He's got the accuracy, got that kind of stuff. Um, I think it's going to be a matter of scheme fit as to which one goes first overall. And obviously we don't nobody's going to know who that is. But I think scheme fit matters here in terms of who goes first overall, who goes second overall. I do think Caleb Williams is a slightly better runner, so that's why I think in fantasy wise, I think Caleb Williams is still the number one. But Drake May is a solid number two. There's nothing else to say about that, I think.
Yeah, I think with Laken Riley's track record with quarterbacks in the NFL draft, that's got to give Caleb the edge. He's got to be the favorite to be the first one taken in 24. And just with the success of UNC quarterbacks, I mean, Mitch Trubisky and recently Sam Howell, he fell over the 5th round. I think that's got to put May as probably the odds-on third. But I mean, I agree with you. I definitely could see all three being, 1, 2, 3. Certainly, I think they're all top 10 picks. Probably top 5. They're all special players.
Yeah. So with Quinn Ewers, I just wanted to say too, like they probably would have beat Alabama with Quinn Ewers healthy. Obviously, we'll never know because he got hurt, but
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers looks like a kind of guy. He's gonna help Texas bring back their dynasty maybe. Now, do I think that they're going to be like a national title contender next year? Like I don't think that. I still think they have a lot of work to do recruiting. I think they have a lot of positions that they need to fill, but this is a good start. And then obviously with Arch Manning coming in the 2023, they have a solid foundation here to really start building a program. And with Quinn Ewers, he's been everything he was billed to be when he declared for the when he switched over to his class, right? And then he went to go to Ohio State. People were expecting him to kind of be the next big thing at Ohio State. Ended up transferring. Now he's playing at Texas, and I think he's the guy. He's like your Matthew Stafford type of quarterback. He's going to be a big arm, and I think he's just athletic enough to kind of make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, Quinn, like we really do, and this is a perfect time, right? Because right now, NFL QBs, especially in fantasy football, is miserable. There's like 5 or 6 you actually want right now. The rest of them are all just super average. But we have all of these great young quarterbacks in college, and I think Quinn Ewers is right there amongst the ones we talked about. This dude has special written on him. I mean, technically, right, this is his second year, even though, like you mentioned, right, he reclassified his high school class. He graduated a year early. And with the injury, right, he's only played a few games, but he's looked really good. And the short time we had against Bama, he looked great. I mean, that throw, I think it was the play before he got hurt. He had that long throw to get him into the red zone. Then I think it was the next play he ended up getting hurt. But I want to see more, like let's see just how much I want to see a bigger sample size. But as of right now, Quinn Ewers, he could be number one pick in the 2024 NFL draft. He's played that well.
Yeah, I think the big knock on Quinn Ewers right now, at this very second in time, is accuracy in the short to intermediate range. I think he's got a great deep ball, but I think he definitely needs to start improving his short to intermediate route ability. But yeah, that's all I got for Quinn Ewers. Why do you think that the Tar Heels are not ranked yet?
So unless I'm crazy, I'm pretty sure they are ranked. I'm pulling that up right now. What I'm seeing right here is they're sitting at 22.
Yeah, I think they just got ranked this week. But I think the big reason they're not is because of the early part of their season. But I think they're a team that's looking like they could be really good in the future here. I think they could be a solid competitor in the ACC as early as next year, and really give Clemson a run for their money.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, they're kind of
honestly, they're a year ahead of schedule.
They are. I agree. I thought they're supposed to have a rebuild year coming from Howell, but I mean, May's been phenomenal. Their defense is lacking big time, but May has made up for it in almost every occasion. 6-1. I've really liked their recruiting classes. The last couple they've put together, a lot of their good players are younger. Yeah, I could definitely see an ACC title game appearance next year.
Yeah, so let's go into Blake Corum and Chase Brown now. You want to talk about those two?
Yeah, so right, you and I are both really big Donovan Edwards fans. So I wonder, has Blake Corum's season has that kind of cooled you a little bit on your Donovan Edwards love?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So Donovan Edwards has still actually been really good. Blake Corum is, and so this is Jim Harbaugh's, this is what he does. Right? He doesn't play young players over the guys who've been in the program. He never has. He probably never will. So if there's a guy that's producing at Blake Corum has been really good. He's producing astronomical numbers for Michigan, and it's with a team that doesn't really have that good of a passing game. And Blake Corum's producing, so why sit him for Donovan Edwards? And I think that's what's going through Jim Harbaugh's mind. And so I'm not worried about Donovan Edwards, but I think Blake Corum is playing himself into the second or third round conversation.
Yeah, Corum's an interesting player. I mean, in terms of Michigan, this is what, like you said, this is what they do. I mean, Corum is averaging over 20 rushes a game. He's got over 6 yards a carry. He's almost got 2 touchdowns a game. He's just beat up everyone they've played. But then, like you said, Edwards missed a little bit of time, but when he's been healthy, he's looked great too. So they've had these two really productive running backs, similar to their team last year. And really, I think that's kind of at the dismay of all of us J.J. McCarthy fans. I don't know if it's that their passing game isn't that good. I think it's, like you said, it's kind of a Jim Harbaugh style. He doesn't want to throw it over the yard. He wants to play this old school, early 90s college football, run the ball, control the clock, play defense. And, hey, they won the Big Ten last year. So that certainly – kind of reinforces that, that's the right thing for them. The only thing for me for the NFL is, hey, what's his measurables going to be? What is he going to weigh in at? What's his height? Because it's possible he's really small. I mean, we could be looking at a Kyron Williams situation again. Now, I would like to hope that, we're not going to get the athletic numbers that Williams got, but at least size-wise, I wouldn't be shocked. So that's my only hesitation to say this guy is going to be a stud.
Yeah. I mean, he's a riser right now, but like you said, he could easily be a faller come the offseason, just because of the measurables.
Yeah.
And then with Chase Brown, I think he's actually the biggest running back benefactor this year.
I think so. I think he played himself into an NFL draft pick. I think he was looking at a UDFA situation. And I think he's looking at 4th round draft capital, maybe 3rd, depending on measurables. He's leading the nation in rushing. He's he's a huge reason. I mean, I think Illinois is the biggest reason they're finding so much success. Their defense is really, really good right now. But I mean, he's been their offense. I mean, even their quarterback missed a couple of games, and their backup was terrible. But Corum is, I mean, he had 41 rushing attempts last game. Like, he's very much, a big part of their offense. And he keeps doing it game after game. And I'm starting to believe, this could be a late round player that could have value.
So talking about Chase Brown and kind of Illinois, what do you think about Isaiah Williams? He's been a big producer for Illinois. I still don't think he's like going to be like this early pick or like anything like that. I think he's probably still like a 6th-round pick, 7th-round pick. But what do you think there?
I throw him in the bucket, a very big bucket of late round dart throws in your rookie drafts. Is when you get draft capital like that, I'm just not relying on you. Like, I don't care how good your tape is. So
yeah,
that's
I think
he's
like an interesting slot receiver to me.
Yeah.
I think he could be kind of a decent slot.
Yeah.
But yeah, just wanted to throw him out there. And but moving on to the followers here. What about Jackson Dart?
Yeah, this one hurts me. I definitely invested in Dart a fair amount, and I thought he was going to be in that conversation. Helping that QB class in 24 look so great, and obviously it's still early. He only started a couple of games as a true freshman at USC last year. He's got less than 10 career starts, and also we've talked about it at length. The two great running backs they have at Ole Miss, and they've had a pretty good defense, so they haven't needed him. I'm starting what I've seen so far. He's a good college quarterback, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the NFL projection. He doesn't have the great timing. He's got good mobility. He's strong with the ball in his hands. But yeah, he's fallen hard. I mean, at this point, I think you're looking at like a day 3 NFL draft pick probably at best, unless something changes.
Yeah. Do you have any confidence in Rondale Moore tonight?
I mean, it just depends on what, you're saying. Confidence that he gets 10 points. Yeah. I mean, I think he's been like wide receiver 22 or something like that in PPR over the last 2 weeks, come back from injury. Obviously, I think Hollywood Brown's absence benefits him, right? They do have Nuke coming back, but I don't think Nuke is taking the targets that would potentially go to Rondale Moore. I don't really think a lot of targets that were going to Hollywood Brown go to Nuke either anyways. So, yeah, I mean, we got like 7 or 8 really good wide receivers on bye this week, not to mention a couple others that are injured. So if you're starting Moore, like, yeah, I think you could get 10, 12 points. And, if he gets in the end zone, certainly could get in the high teens.
Yeah, so for me, for Rondale Moore, it's a great opportunity for me to talk some crap about my dear New Orleans Saints. So Marshawn Lattimore's out. I would start literally every single player from the Cardinals that I can, except for James Conner, who I think he's out still.
Last I saw was game time decision, but I think it's leaning towards out.
Yeah. But I'm starting all the receivers because the Saints secondary has been atrocious all season. Tyrann Mathieu looks like a shell of himself. Marcus May's out. Marshawn Lattimore's out. They have no pass rush. I'm just going to go ahead and just sell them all. And then, super. We are answering certain questions. So if you do have something, just let us know. Throw it in the chat and we'll get to it. I do want to say, too, we have some breaking news. So Elijah Moore has requested a trade out of New York.
Wow, really? I put myself on Do Not Disturb, so I didn't see that. Holy cow, that's wild. I mean, I'm not that surprised because of the usage. I mean, you and I both love Elijah Moore, great Ole Miss product. And it's been just perplexing. Why isn't the super talented young receiver getting targets? Especially, I figured when Zach Wilson came back, that would be a boon to Elijah because they seemed to really develop a good chemistry last year. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. They did say that they have no plans to trade him, but I think it's something to monitor. Like, he could easily go to like Green Bay. Green Bay is an interesting decision.
Can you imagine? I mean, do they need a wide receiver in the worst way possible?
Yeah. So he needs super needs a flex here. So he's got Olave, Mike Williams, Christian Kirk, Eno Benjamin, Mostert, and Brian Robinson. I'm going to go with Chris Olave. And the reason I'm going to go with Chris Olave is because I think it's going to be a game where New Orleans is going to need to score points. I think they're going to be losing at the end of the game. Mike Thomas is out. Jarvis Landry's out. Chris Olave is going to be the number one option there. I think he's got to be your start. And then I think Mike Williams is another good option.
Yeah, I have it between those two players myself. Kirk is a number 3, but kind of distant because the last couple of weeks, he's not getting that volume. It's looking like what we saw at the beginning of the year might be short-lived. But I got to give it to you, man. You were all about Chris Olave. I was a little doubtful. I still had him ranked decently, but not nearly like you. I was a little doubtful, and Olave's that dude. He's been so good as a rookie. And I'll go with Olave.
Yeah, so I do want to say though too, like if you like, depending on who your other two receivers are, like you might want to just throw both of them in there.
Yeah, I mean these are probably ranked as wide receiver 2s, both this week. So especially Michael Thomas is out, Jarvis Landry is out. Olave's going to get a lot of targets.
So next question here is, gosh, should I trade Olave, Jacobs, and Pierce for Austin Eckler? I have Chase, Diggs, and Godwin, and Stevenson and Walker. I'm not trading any of those 3 players for someone unless I get like a much better player than Eckler. Like I want Eckler plus in that sort of situation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really honestly does. It depend on what kind of a league format it is. Like, redraft or dynasty, because I mean Jacobs and Eckler, they're produced. I mean, yes, I know Eckler's number 1 right now, but like Jacobs is crushing it too. So,
and Pierce is like they're talking about maybe giving him 20 plus carries from now on. So,
yeah, I'm thinking that's probably Alec Pierce. I mean, if it's Dameon Pierce, then yeah, easily that side.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess I was thinking of Dameon Pierce, but if it's Alec Pierce, I'd still probably stick with the Olave Jacobs side, and then I would definitely just stick with I would say Jamar and Pittman, and then I got to say Olave just because of who's out in New Orleans. I think he's going to have a big week, but
yeah, and Mahdi, if I'm saying that right, is confirming it's Dameon Pierce. I mean,
it's not Dameon. Oh, it is Dameon. Okay, never mind. I'm right. You're right. Yeah,
we got an RB2, an RB1, and like a wide receiver 2 for a running back 1. Like I don't think Eckler and Jacobs are going to score that difference of points. Like,
yeah, I would try to like maybe package 2 of those players like Olave and Jacobs, and then try to get like I don't know, try to see if you can swing a deal for a better receiver, but and then like maybe get a like, but I don't know. I would just stick with both of all those guys. So your running back situation is rough, but pick out 2 of Najee, Damian Harris, Kenyon Drake, or Latavius Murray. So I'm gonna go with Najee, and I would say Damian Harris, but
that is rough. I mean, yes, Najee's obvious of that, but Damian Harris might not even play coming off of this pretty bad hamstring injury. And Ramondre Stevenson got every single rushing attempt for New England last week. I mean, is there a better running back on the waiver wire? Like,
So the thing about Latavius Murray is, honestly, the issue with that I have with Latavius Murray is more just the ineptitude of the Broncos offense.
Yeah.
I do think though, one thing to keep in mind for Kenyon Drake is if Gus Edwards and what's his name? I'm blanking here. The
JK.
Yeah, JK. Yeah, if they both don't play, then Kenyon Drake is a really good play at that point. But you're relying on them not playing.
Yeah, I think JK will play. I don't think Gus is quite ready. Yeah, he logged a full practice, I know, but
I think he'll play, but I just think I think Ramondre is going to probably split it. That's why I say it is Damian is my go-to there. And then if Damian doesn't play for some reason, then I think it's got to be Kenyon Drake and then Latavius Murray. I think that order right there is the right order. Am I starting Godwin over Olave? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, Godwin's a stud. He's gonna get the targets. He's produced good numbers without even getting a touchdown yet. If he's like guaranteed 12. If he gets a touchdown, he's over 20 points in my opinion. I think they're close. Like Olave's still really good. We mentioned it already, but I'll take Godwin. I'll probably rank him, 3 to 5 spots higher on my weekly rankings this week than Olave.
Yeah, I think it's really close, but I'm going to lean towards Godwin just because rookies tend to have some bad weeks that when we think they might not. So I'm going to go with the consistency of Godwin. So let's just jump back into Kayshon Boutte. So we've kind of talked about him a little bit, right? So Kayshon Boutte is probably, I think he's hurting his draft stock more than any receiver that we've mentioned.
Yeah, what I'm wondering is, could he have pulled a Jamar Chase? Could he have sat out this year and still been a top 12, 15 pick in the NFL draft? Like, all right, he wasn't a Blitnishnikov winner like Chase, but he had put some really good film on tape, rookie or freshman, sophomore year. What we've seen this year has been inconsistent. It's shown a lack of effort, lack of care.
Has bad hands. He's had bad hands all season. Like that worries me, right? I'm not interested anymore. I don't want anything to do with Kayshon Boutte, and the reason I don't want anything to do with him is because I think with the lack of effort and then the lack of the many drops that he's had a ton of drops in key situations, and yeah, you could coordinate. You could say that okay, well he has those drops because he doesn't care, but that's still concerning, right? That's still a big deal to me.
Yeah, it's concerning, no doubt, but I still think this guy's going to be a first round NFL pick. And he's so talented. He's so physically gifted. Someone's going to take him. He's definitely going to be a top 50 pick. So, he's still definitely 2023 NFL rookie draft pick for me, first round rookie draft pick. But, he, at the beginning of the year, was right there splitting hairs with JSN as number 1 for me. I've got him now, do I want Quentin Johnson or do I want Boutte as my number 3? I have Addison as elevated to 2. But I'm worried about Boutte. I mean, I'm probably ranking him as let's see, I just put that together real quick before the episode. Yeah, I have him as 8. I have him going at 108, which is kind of the beginning of the second tier, in my opinion, of rookie players next year.
Yeah. So do you have anything else to talk about for the risers and fallers, or?
No, I think we can move on.
Yeah, so the next kind of big topics of discussion here is just going to be what, as a dynasty player, right? So if let's say your team's 2-4, right? You have a lot of, you're not scoring a lot of points, stuff like that. You're trying to mail it in. You're trying to go ahead and rebuild it. What's your options here?
So 2-4, 3-3, 4-2, right? You should have it's 6 weeks in. You should know what you are. Are you a pretender? Are you a contender? Or are you just obviously out of it, right? Are you 2-4 because you have Jonathan Taylor? Are you 2-4 because you're waiting on Deshaun Watson to come back? Or what's the reason? Is it because your players just aren't that good? Is it because you've had a couple injuries? Maybe you're just super unlucky. You've had the second most points in the week, twice and lost to the number 1. These are important things. But I think what you're trying to lead me down the road is hey, I'm 2-4. I'm out of it. I'm, even if I squeeze into the playoffs, I'm probably getting bounced first round by 20 points. Right. In that situation, this is where you got to be active. Go and find the 3-3 team that's not that good. Go and find the 2-4 team that's not that good. Go and find somebody and go and get their first round pick if you can, right? If there's a 4-2 team that actually is just totally fraudulent, and has been lucking their way into victories, go and get get rid of players that aren't going to help you next year, the year after. Like, do you have Keenan Allen? Is that why you're 2-4? Well, guess what? Unless like Keenan Allen coming back is going to like set you on a 3-4 game win streak, sell Keenan Allen for basically whatever you can get.
Yeah, you know, I'm actually in this situation right now. I'm 3-3 in our Debbie League that we're doing. And going into the season, you know, I kind of thought that I was going to be able to compete with the team that I had, and I have been decimated by injuries, absolutely decimated. I have T. Higgins who's missed who's gotten hurt in like 3 games, ends up like putting up 0 to 2 points in those games that he's gotten hurt. I've had Keenan Allen. I've had David Montgomery who's got hurt. You know, if you name the injury, I probably have them at this point. I have 26 total injuries between college and NFL in this league. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, I'm leaning towards selling, but at the same time, I'm like, man, if all these guys get healthy, you never know.
Yeah, in a situation like that, what you got to do is you got to say, hey, what can I actually get back? You know, am I getting good value, you know, from a Keenan Allen? Because you do have a good roster. You could absolutely compete if they get healthy. You know, like, don't sell just to sell, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that to you. I'm selling that to anybody. Like, don't sell just to sell. You know, like if you have Aaron Rodgers in Superflex, and you know, don't take a 3rd round pick because that's all you can get. Like, unless he retires over the season, he's going to gain value, you know, into next year. Like, yes, you want to get points off your roster, you know, you do, but you can't be like single focused. I'm going to sell this player, you know, like you got to still get decent value. Like, if you take a little value hit, yeah, that's fine. Right. I think, you know, you should be able to get a late 1st round pick for Keenan Allen. But if you're like, you know what, all I can get is 2 seconds. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things too. You have to look at the value you're getting when you're selling these players or talking about selling these players. And right now, I don't think that Keenan Allen is somebody that's like entirely interesting to a lot of contenders, because I think a lot of people are worried about the hamstring. So I think your best bet is to kind of wait until after their bye in week 8.
Yeah.
And hopefully he'll have a big game like week 9, and then you can trade him after that.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, other than that, like, you know, I honestly, like, I think Jonathan Taylor, you just have to wait. Like, I'm not selling Jonathan Taylor. Like, I think you just got to wait. You got to wait it out.
Yeah, he's shown periods, both seasons, his full seasons, of like head scratching poor performance. You know, as a rookie, like Nyman Hines was taking touches away. And then last year, it took a few games for him to get on, you know, get going, and then he crushed. Right? He had a great game, and then he had a couple bad ones. First of all, this offensive line isn't what we thought it would be. The fact that they have no left tackle is destroying them offensively. They've had a lot of injuries, right? Pittman had a hammy. Pierce is, you know, Alec Pierce, he's like, as a rookie from Cincinnati, supposed to like day one be a good starter for them. Like, I like him as a player, but to rely on him long term is a little sketchy. Their tight end, you know, Mo Alley Cox, Jelani Woods, who I like long term, but like, you know, there's a lot of issues with this offense. So it makes sense that he's not just smashing game after game. But I still think you're going to get, you know, RB10, RB8 points per game value from Taylor this year, you know, with definitely ceiling to be higher. You know, if you're trying to sell picks, right, we kind of led to, you know, said this earlier, but like if you're trying to sell your older players to get 23 picks and it's just not working, you're like, no one's giving me a fair offer, go and get their 24th picks. Because like we've talked about, the 24 class is loaded. It's really, really good. And you could gain a lot of value by going and get 24 picks.
I actually think one interesting strategy too, like if you're not competing and let's say like you have like a Derek Carr, right? If you have a Derek Carr and like somebody's like really desperate for a 3rd quarterback or even a 2nd quarterback, then try to throw Derek Carr out there for like a 1 and 24. See if somebody's willing to bite. Like, it's probably unlikely.
It is just because he's been playing so bad. You know, what's going on there?
At the same time, like, right, if you had some of those like kind of older quarterbacks that are, you know, like they haven't been performing up to standard, or maybe like, you know, yours the bad roster. Well, then maybe it's time to try to move some of those guys to try to get that. Another interesting person too to move is like Kyler Murray. right?
Sell
You could
Kyler.
easily get, I think, multiple firsts for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, you have to get 2. I mean, he's QB6. As bad as he's been performing, he's still, an elite fantasy asset right now. But I'm really worried about Kyler long term.
Yeah, I still think that Cliff Kingsbury is going to get fired. So, but I guess that's still unlikely. But I think it's becoming more and more likely by the loss. So, but do you have anything else about competing, or guys trying to sell or rebuilding and stuff like that?
So just one thing, right? So this is a generic statement that I think applies always. Running back is the position you should fill last in a contending fantasy football team. You don't, right? Really good running backs are useful in fantasy for like 3 or 4 years. Most useful fantasy running backs are 2, maybe 3 years.
You want them in their rookie contract.
Exactly. If you're a contender, sure, you can have a CMC, you can have Aaron Jones, you can have a Derrick Henry, et cetera, et cetera. But like Ramondre Stevenson, I don't want him if I'm not contending, because I don't think in 2 years Ramondre Stevenson's going to be doing great things in fantasy. It's a possible maybe, but I don't think so. Dameon Pierce. I don't want Dameon Pierce. As great as he's looking, he's a 4th-round rookie pick that, he's James Robinson all over again. Like, trade him, go get a 1st-round pick, get those really good points off your roster, which helping your own draft picks. And, unless you think that running back is going to be a stud, in 2 years, in 3 years when you're really good, trade them now.
So let's do this. So I'll say what I think is the positions you should fill first in a dynasty roster, and then we can get your take after. So I'm taking quarterbacks first. I think quarterbacks are the first foundational piece of your dynasty roster for a super flex. Just to be clear. And then I think it is wide receivers, and then it's tight ends, then it's running backs. And so I think the only ones I would flip there is wide receivers and tight ends. And the reason I say that is because tight ends generally, they're harder to predict. So that's why I kind of have them as 3, because I think it's less likely for you to get a really good tight end. So prioritizing wide receiver to me is a better idea. What do you think there? You on the same page?
I'm basically in line with you. I think that super flex leagues, the most important thing is to get one stud quarterback. And really, there's like 5 or 6 of them. Like, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. I'd say that's kind of tier 1. And, if I can't get them, I really want like a Joe Burrow. Honestly, I'm starting to come around on Jalen Hurts pretty hard. I'm really impressed. But like after that, and I already told you, I'm really worried about Kyler long term. Like Kyler getting here definitely was in that list. But, I want a really, really good, that can be an anchor. That QB can be an anchor. And then, if I can get at value, another really good QB, awesome. But, if it doesn't work out, that's okay.
Yeah. So this is actually where I disagree with you, because you were saying like you would take Bijan at 1.01 this year. So the reason I still would take I have Bryce at 1 this year, and then CJ 2. But the reason I'm doing that is because it's like I said with the quarterbacks, like they're going to be like a stud quarterback's going to last you the longest amount of time, right? Mm-hmm. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are going to be good for 15 years. Right. So for a dynasty roster, it's so important to have that foundational piece. Whereas like if I'm a bad team and I'm drafting 1.01, because you're a bad team if you're drafting 1.01, unless you traded to get the 1.01 for some reason, your roster is bad. Like Bijan Robinson's not going to help your roster for more than like 4 years, 5 years. And so I just don't see any situation where you'd be able to flip the roster that quickly unless you're just crushing the draft. And I think that's kind of unlikely. So I think you should take a quarterback with your first overall pick until you have at least 1 stud, if not 2. And you know beforehand, like you should know right now that Trevor Lawrence is probably not going to be that stud at this point in his career. Like he could be still, but it's not likely at this point. So you should be looking at quarterbacks again. If you drafted Trevor Lawrence a couple years ago, you should be looking at quarterbacks again, saying like, okay, I need to get another option. See if I can get the next big thing.
Yeah, it always depends, right? It always depends on your league, your roster, et cetera, et cetera. If I'm in a situation where I have the 101 and it's because I'm not going to be competitive for a few years, I'm not going to take CJ Stroud. I'm not going to take Bryce Young because I'm worried about either of them, actually being good at NFL football. What I would do is I would trade. I would trade the 101. Can I trade back to 104 to 105? Or can I just get, like 324 for, whatever the situation? Can I trade can I trade back? Or, right, I draft Bijan. If I have to make a pick, I'm taking Bijan because, I think he's the safest elite player in the draft. And then, I trade him. Like, look at Breece Hall. What can you get for Breece Hall right now? Right? He helped me win maybe 1 or 2 games to start my season, and then I can trade him for a ransom. It just depends, right? Are you an active trader? That's a big factor. Do you just draft and that's what you do? I don't particularly enjoy playing fantasy football that way, but some people do. And if that's the case, it's probably better to do what you're thinking.
Yeah, I just obviously if you trade, you could trade like a Bijan Robinson or Breece Hall type. I mean, Breece Hall was the undisputed number 1 for me in PPR even, or in Superflex even this past year. But I'm a big believer in Bryce Young. I think the big thing that a lot of people don't really understand is that intelligence matters way more than your physical and your arm in the NFL level. All the NFL quarterbacks that get drafted can make this throws. Like, some can't throw at 80 yards, sure, but that's not necessarily, and that's not a requirement for most NFL quarterbacks, right? Intelligence matters, and Bryce Young being compared as like the most intelligent player Alabama's ever seen by Nick Saban, that means something to me. I think that is a good reason for me to invest in Bryce Young.
Yeah, by no means would I think think it's a poor choice if someone took Bijan, at 3. Like, their QB, I get it. Like, it's super flex, they're gold. But I'm just putting out, that's where I'm at. If I had to make a decision, I'd do that.
Yeah. So I don't really have anything else to talk about. I think we've touched on everything you want to talk about, right? Do you have anything else?
No, I mean, geez, we could talk forever, but no, I think we did a really good job talking, our risers follows. We talked to 23, 24 class kind of strategy, and then just kind of generic, like, hey, it's the end of like the first chapter of the season. It's time to make moves. Like, are you a contender? Go and get a player. Like, go and look at those really bad teams. The 1-5 team that has a great running back that's older. Go get them. Hopefully at value.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, we appreciate everybody listening today. We appreciate the comments and the questions. We're going to be doing this again next week at 2:30 or 5:30 Eastern. So we're looking forward to doing it again next week with you guys, and hope to see you then.
Yeah. Thank you.